I realize as I put the trash in the bin and turn around, I'm now locked out of the house in
No.
nothing but a t-shirt and flip-flops.
Hey, welcome back to the Stories on Tape podcast. I'm your host, Josh Robinson, and I'm very excited about today's storyteller. She has not only stage managed shows on Broadway, but across the country for decades, so she's definitely a professional. She is just become one of my favorite people and is part of the reason why I got to go on tour. We'll get into that in a little bit. And she's up for officiating a wedding with less than 48 hours notice. So what else could you ask for? It's the one and only Kim Fisk. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Josh.
I am so excited you agreed to do this. I know I emailed you and you were like, I don't think you have the right person. And I said, no, I do. So how are you feeling? How are you feeling about this?
Good. As I was saying to you, I had watched a couple of other episodes and I was like, oh, I get it. We're just schmoozing. We're just two friends chatting. Oh, good.
Just chatting. And I've loved getting to do this so far. I've learned a lot about friends and family that I didn't know. So I think that's been the other cool part is just, you don't ever get this time like dedicated to tell stories. So I think this has just it's been a lot of fun. So maybe we'll all get to learn a thing or two about each other by the time we're done today. So the first question I like to ask everyone is, Kim, do you have a story you can tell us that will tell us who Kim Fisk is if we've never met you before?
Well, okay, interesting you put it that way because the story that I had sort of thought about telling might not tell you a lot about my personality per se,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just a moment in time. And this is actually a story that happened many years ago. That sort of always comes back to me, as you had sort of said, it's the story that all of my oldest friends know because we talk
Yes.
about it and laugh about it a lot. So yes. So you want me to just go into it?
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I went to graduate school out here on the West Coast at UCSD, and while I was a grad student, my roommate and I um, had been asked to house sit for two of our professors. They were a married couple. They each were head of a different department, and they traveled out of the country every year for a period of time, a couple, 3 months. And so they had this really lovely home in this very affluent neighborhood. And so, of course, what starving graduate student wouldn't want to go stay in this amazing house for 3 months? So we did. And my roommate and friend, actually got the opportunity to go to South Africa to work with Athol Fugard. So she went off for a period of time. And I was in the house by myself, which was fine. It didn't bother me. But one night, it was, I don't remember what night of the week it was. It must have been closer to the weekend. But I went to take the trash out. And this house it's in a village. Like I said, it's a very affluent neighborhood, and it sits in a village that is very kind of woodsy. So the house itself felt like you didn't have neighbors. It was like a lot of trees and stuff around, but just like a couple blocks away was like the little main street, which had restaurants and stuff. So I go to take the garbage out, and the door from the kitchen to the garage closes behind me. And I realize as I put the trash in the bin and turn around, I'm now locked out of the house in
No.
nothing but a t-shirt and flip-flops. Now the t-shirt was a little bit longer, so it actually covered my thighs at least. It wasn't like a shorty, but I'm standing in the garage going, what the hell am I going to do? Now you have to know this is in the 90s. This is pre-cell phones. This is right. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I have no idea how to deal with this. So I thought, well, I can at least get out of the garage because the garage door opener will do that. So I got out of the garage. Now it's nighttime. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to go down to the main drag and find like a cell phone. I mean, a payphone rather. And in the meantime, I'm also thinking, how am I even going to pay for a call? But I thought, let me just get around people. So I go down to the first corner of this main drag, and the only place I can see that might have a payphone is this really nice restaurant.
Of course. Of
And I'm like,
course.
okay, well, let me just go to the front maitre d' stand and at least sort of get inside and see what I can find out. So I go in and I say, hi, I know I'm not really appropriately dressed, but I just need a payphone. She goes, Oh, sure. Just walk all the way through the dining room and all the way through the back and then turn left and go down the hallway into the restroom. And that's where the payphone is. I was like, okay. So I walk through this restaurant in my t-shirt and flip-flops and I get into the restroom. I thought, okay, I'm gonna call the security system on it. And I did know the number for the security company because it's like an 800 and then the name of the company. I was like, okay,
Okay.
I can figure this out. So I called that number and they said, oh, in order for us to come and let you in, we have to call the owners and make sure that it's okay. Do you have the password? I said, yes. They gave me the password. Here's what it is. They're like, great, let us call Mr. and Mrs. Such and such. So I go on hold. Like 15 minutes later, this operator comes back and she says, well, Mr. and Mrs. Such and Such have decided that since it's the middle of the night, the cost of letting you in is like double what it would be. So they just said, go stay with a friend and come back in the morning and we'll come to let you in. I was like, I don't think they understand. Like, I'm in a restaurant in my t-shirt and flip-flops with
Right.
like nothing. I was so mad. So I'm like, okay. We hung up and I was like, all right, I can call my friend collect. So I called my friend collect and she was like 20 miles away, but she, for some reason, she didn't have her car available. And she's like, okay, I'm going to call our friend Dennis. He's going to come get you or let you in or help you get in, whatever. So I said, okay, great. So I go back to the house. She calls our friend Dennis. And I realize when I get back to the house, there's all these creatures, again, wooded area, kind of foresty. So there's like all these like they're pretty harmless night creatures. But again, I'm like, so I go into the garage and I set up the ladder that I find in the garage and I go and I sit on top of the ladder because I didn't want anything to get me on the ground. So I'm sitting on this ladder waiting. And eventually my friend Dennis shows up on his motorcycle.
No,
So it's not even
Kim.
like he can take me away with him. So we like sat there and tried to figure it out. He's like, well, maybe I can shimmy up to the balcony level because I thought maybe I'd left the bedroom glass door unlocked, which I had. So eventually he was able to climb up the side of the house, get into the bedroom door and come down and let me in. And then we just sat and drank all night and laughed our asses off because it was the most ridiculous situation I've ever been in.
Kim,
Anyhow,
that's
that's my
incredible.
story.
That is like a rom-com scene if I've ever heard of it. Okay, so then my follow-up question is when
Yeah.
you saw these professors at school or whenever,
Mhm.
what like did you say anything? Did they say anything?
I said something and they were so casual and blew it off so easily that I couldn't even begin to like go any further into it. But it is a local story amongst the ranks of the classes that year, right? Like people know this story.
Right.
And these people were not unkind people. Like it was just a random, they just decided they didn't want to pay double for letting me in at 9 o'clock at night versus at, 10 o'clock the next morning, whatever. And of course, they were in London, so it was like 6 in the morning their time. So
Right.
I'm sure they were also woken up and like were not thinking clearly. Like there's all kinds of reasons why, but I just don't think they understood the dire situation I was in. So
Right. Yeah. Wow. I'm picturing this and it's like it's Anne Hathaway in a fancy restaurant. Like you hear the flip flops and like, oh, that's
yep,
so good, Kim. Oh,
yeah,
I'm so glad I know this story now. That's incredible. That's so good. Okay, so I have gotten to know you thanks to my husband Travis, and you started as a mentor, right?
yep.
So tell me a little bit about that relationship, and do you have a favorite Travis story? I think everyone that knows Travis has something. Is there a story with him either like early on or just you're almost decade together working together so far in life?
Well, I think my favorite story is the origin story because one time only, I had some freedom in my touring schedule. So I toured, as you had mentioned, for like 26 years solid. Like I think I had 3 months off around my wedding. And then I
Sure.
had a 1 6 month period of time when I was between shows at one point where I stayed at home and ran a Red Cross for 6 months. So I went because I had a couple of friends who were mentors at a convention called USITT. which is a technical theater sort of, weekend long, really week long conference where students and professors and theater professionals, a lot of technology people come together and they discover what new technology in theater exists and how it can help us all do our jobs. So the one time that I was able to do it, Travis was one of the mentees that season. He was not mine. You were actually set up with a particular mentee.
Okay.
He was not the person that I was assigned to. But during that week, I noticed that he would like peel off and come and find me and ask me a lot of questions about touring and smart questions and good questions, which for me, having sort of talked to a lot of younger people and students who are interested, sometimes you can just tell they're not really that interested or they're not sure because they're just not asking the right things. Travis asked all the right things. And so I thought from that moment, I was like, this kid is going to be in my world and I'm going to make that happen. So, cut to a year later, I was doing a production process and I needed a PA. And he, I think, had just graduated and he had stayed in my mind. I think we'd stayed a little bit in touch, but I reached out and I was like, hey, I have a show that I'm setting up. I need you to maybe come be a PA for a few weeks. And then eventually maybe you could come out and sub for us because that's kind of a natural progression. And he was like, oh my God, I'd love to. So we did that. And of course, he like, again, won my heart and head over. And I was able to then bring him out a year or two later on my Hamilton tour, fully on my team. And he was the best, is the best. Like he's just, there's a core group of people in this country of stage managers that I would always want to work with, and he is in that very small group. So
Oh.
yeah, so he just followed me around and like didn't let up, and I was like, okay, I get it. You really like this part of the business. Let's go.
You're gonna make me. I'm getting emotional just hearing this. Oh no. I love it. I'm so thankful for you. Anytime Travis gets to talk about you, he lights up, and it's so special. And I know that you mean so much to each other. So it's always exciting to get together and get to see you and catch up. Now, if I remember correctly, Travis and I started dating, and I think you guys had a conversation about me coming on tour. Am I mixing up people, or were you a part of
No,
this?
I was like, yeah, I was hardcore, like, get Josh out with us. Like, there are opportunities, like, get him, on the merch team. Like, that's
Yeah.
the obvious place that people often are able to get their family members to start joining us. And yeah, so I really like not pressured him, but I really offered up that that was a strong possibility and that he should look into it. And then it happened.
And here we are. And I remember early on, we ended up in someone's hotel room because it was you and Roya and Steve and Travis and maybe Eva. And I hearing because I didn't know any of you besides Travis, and so I kind of I showed up, and I just remember sitting in that hotel room and hearing all of you swap stories about the shows you've worked on and the tours and the people, and I've had this happen a few times now, where I think to myself, if 10, 15-year-old Josh knew he would be connected to and then become friends with these people, he wouldn't believe it. It's incredible. It's so special. I love all of you so much now. And in fact, love you so much that we had you officiate our wedding, which is truly one of my favorite. It's almost been a year.
Yeah.
By the time this comes out, we might be right around the year mark.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually,
s-
yeah.
so, what do you remember from your side of that story? And then I'll try to fill in our side of things.
Well, panic is the first word that comes to
Yes.
mind, only because it was very last minute. So our like very dear friend Roya was set to officiate, which
Yes.
made so much sense to me when Travis told me that. I was like, of course, Roya, because she's just got this great sage quality about her. Like I felt like she could imbue a lot of love and warmth into it without getting overly religious or all the things. Like it was just, she was the perfect person to do it. And I was so thrilled. And I, of course, was coming to the wedding regardless. So Roya went on a field trip with her son back
Yes.
east.
Mm-hmm.
She lives out here on the West Coast, and she went back east right before the wedding. And her plan was already a little crazy in that she was literally coming back in like 10 or 12 hours later, getting on a flight to come back east again for the wedding. So it was already a little bit, tenuous if everything was going to line up properly. But we didn't think anything of it. And then her dad had a health issue that
Mm-hmm.
came up in the middle of it that was unexpected at that moment. And so all of a sudden, Travis calls me and he's like, "So Roya's dad might need Roya to like hang out during that time. And there's a chance that she's not going to make it back east." And I was like, "Oh no." And he was like, "So would you be interested in officiating the wedding?" And I was just like, and this is at that point, it was 3 or 4 days before the wedding, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a sure thing yet. We didn't know for sure that Roya wasn't going to make it. So I said, "Sure," thinking, "Oh, she's going to make it. There's no way I'm going to have to do this. Not have to, but need to do this."
Sure.
And so, cut to my husband and I get ready for our flight. We were coming back like a day before we were joining you guys for the wedding festivities. And I'm literally in the airport here at SFO. Travis calls. He's like, "Yep, you're up. Stand by, get ready." And I was like, "Oh my God, okay." So miraculously, getting the license to marry somebody is surprisingly quick and easy. And I literally, in the airport, went online while I was waiting for my flight, and I think it took me 12 minutes to become an officiant. I was amazed by that part because I thought for sure that was going to be the hang up.
Right.
Um, and then of course I called Roy. I was like, "Give me all your notes. I need all your notes." So she sent me some ideas of her notes. And then once I got on site with all of you and your family and your friends, I got less panicked because I thought, you know what? I'm going to let the whole community help with this. Like, this is not just on me. This is all of us celebrating them. So I literally spent that night before your wedding just talking to everybody at the pre-party and just saying, "What are your favorite memories of the two of them? Or what do you want to say to them? What are your wishes for them?" And it helped me just with a more relaxed atmosphere, just sort of create that ceremony for my part of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it all went fine. And look, I'm a stage manager by nature. Last minute change ups, like all of that, they're in my world. So in the end, it was good to experience it firsthand as the actual performer, if you will.
It
uh,
was, yeah, I remembered Roya calling us and being like, "Hey guys, my dad had a health issue. Not sure yet. We're not sure how serious it is." And then, like, the next day, she was like, "Yeah, I'm not." And we were like, "Obviously, Roya, like, of course you're going to
right,
stay." Yes.
right.
And so then it truly became like, okay, who's coming? Who do we? And so, and then it obviously, yeah, it was just like, "Oh, yeah, Kim, duh." But I didn't know what I didn't know until we started the ceremonies that you had talked to our friends and family who were there, and I think that was so special. I think one of Travis's aunts filmed our vows, and so that was really special to get to watch back. But I think my favorite part from it was we hadn't told anyone that this had happened. And so we had schemed with you to do kind of like an
That's
Oprah moment. And we were like, "All right, everyone, Roya was supposed to be here, but she can't make it. So if you look under your seats, we've randomly chosen, wink, wink, one of you to be our officiant." And then Kim very quickly like, "It's me," and like jumped up. And there's a cute picture. It's so fun. So thank you. I don't know if thank you again for just being
no
so
need.
willing.
It was great.
It was lovely. And then it was just such a great, I love getting to talk about that weekend. It was just so special and so easy, I think. And then I think I love, you told us later, you were like, I could become a professional officiant. I could do this full time.
You get to just go to weddings and parties all the time. What, like, that's a dream job.
Agreed. Why not? Why not? So, and we got married in East Tennessee, and you have your. Are you from there? Or your
My
husband?
husband is.
Yes. Good old
Yeah.
Bubba. Good old
Yeah.
Bubba. So, how often are you guys back in East Tennessee now?
Well, interesting question. It was a while in between trips up until your wedding,
Okay.
because, as you recall, right after you guys got married, our daughter had our first grandbaby.
That's right. That's
And she's in
right.
East Tennessee. So we were, the other part of the week that we were there for your wedding, we were seeing her right before she had our grandbaby. And so then we went back at Christmas time, and then we went back again this past May, and we'll go back again this holiday time. So now it's at least twice a year. But for a couple of years, when I moved out here to San Francisco, which was in 22,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to go back to my house for like 2 solid years, which was weird. And we also have a house. It's going to make us sound so like well-to-do. It's not. We have a house in Tampa that is technically our permanent house. Our house in Tennessee that we still have. Actually, our kids are living in. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, so we have houses on the East Coast, which we never get to, but luckily now it's more frequent. So
That's awesome. I love it so much. And can you tell me a little bit how did you and Bubba meet? I don't know if I've ever heard this story.
oh yeah, so it was interesting because I had done a couple of tours in the late '90s and knew that that was like my calling. I was like, this
Mm-hmm.
is the road. The road life is for me. And I went on to the Titanic tour when had already been running for a couple of years. And my friend Lee, who I had worked with on an earlier tour, became the PSM, and he called me and said, "Can you come out and be my first on Titanic?" And I was just starting a Broadway show,
Mm.
which I know for most people would be like, "Oh no, Broadway for sure, over the road." No, not me. That is not my jam. So I like New York and I love visiting. I did not love living there. And
Sure.
so the road just really spoke to me. So I said yes to Lee. So I get on the tour, and the flyman, Larry, now Bubba, was really funny and fun. And we were in a couple of cities where we didn't have union crews, and we were low in numbers because they were on like college campuses and stuff. So I, as a stage manager, had the freedom to, for the load ins and load outs, go on to a couple of crews to help our show get set up. And I went on to the carpentry crew with Larry, the flyman, and he and I just had a blast. And the next thing I know, like several like weeks, months later, we were at one of our little opening night gatherings, and he kissed me, and I was just like, "What?" Like, "Oh,
Oh.
okay." And I remember my friend Lee saying, I noticed you guys are getting close. I don't really want either of you to like get hurt and sort of." And I was like, "Look, this is like not a thing. Like, I am not moving to Tennessee, and I'm not becoming a stepmom. So just this is not a thing." Cut to
Here we are.
several months later, we're living together on the road. We've like, and then
Mm-hmm.
eventually got married. So, yeah, so he wooed me over. He used to, so, as a calling stage manager, the calling desk is set up backstage somewhere usually. And it was stage right for Titanic. And oftentimes the rail was on the deck right behind where the calling stage manager station was. And so I would sometimes turn around in the middle of calling the show, and he would have gotten all the local flymen to like put boxes on their heads and like draw faces on them, so that when I turned around, there's like this row of like 5 people just standing there with boxes on their heads. Like, he was just like so funny. And yeah, it happened naturally and unexpectedly.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that, Kim. And for our non-theater people, one, a flyman is, if you've ever seen like set pieces that come in and out, or the curtain going in and out, things like that, there are people sometimes that are literally pulling ropes, right, Kim?
Yep.
And they are
It's all
literally
based in
making,
sailing. Yeah, like, if you
yes.
think about old sailing ideas, that's exactly what the fly rail system in a theater is very much based on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're literally pulling those ropes up and down to make things come in and out during a show, um, and that's just that just puts the biggest smile on my face. That's so fun. I love that. And then I feel like we've kind of gone in reverse order, but that's okay. How did you become a stage manager? Was that something you? To me, it always feels like people are in shows first, and then they, as like actors, are on stage, and then they realize like, oh, there's so many other things happening behind the scenes, and I think I fit that better. Was that your story?
Sort of. So, I always joke that my biography will be called The Accidental Stage Manager, which I think 99% of stage managers, that is, at least stage managers of my age, maybe not so much in Travis's generation.
Sure.
But when I grew up, now granted, I came from a small town in upstate New York. we didn't have much of a theater or arts program. Like our schools, we did musicals, and I was in the chorus and band or whatever. So I was musical and theater inclined to some degree as a performer, because that's all there was. Like we
Mm-hmm.
barely had any tech at all in my high school. Like the AV department, the AV club was who ran like whatever tech there was, but there was like minimal tech. And there was certainly nothing called a stage manager or production manager or anything. That was like our music teacher ran everything, right? So my grandparents, God rest their souls, they believed in the arts a lot. They nurtured my interest in the arts, but also it was never intended that I was going to go into the arts. I thought I was going to go to law school. So my grandparents always got like the arts programs that came through every summer. They would always buy the membership for that and always take me to them. And I remember one of the performers one time was Della Reese, just doing like her one woman show. And because it was my high school, my best friends and I, and we were very, like I said, we're all into the music and theater and whatnot. We found our way backstage after her performance and got to where her dressing room was, which was like our cafeteria or something. It was like, yeah, I
Sure.
think it was our cafeteria. And so we got in somehow and started talking to her. She was so lovely and just the kindest, like most nurturing person. And she had just done this incredible show. And I was just like, wow, like this is so cool. But again, never thought it was a possibility of something that I could ever consider as a career. It just wasn't viable. And so I go to college, went to the University of Buffalo, went in as a poli-sci and history major. Russian history, of all things, was my focus. And my sophomore year, I saw a notice on campus that said, oh, auditions for a John Guare play called Rich and Famous. And I was like, oh, well, I always liked acting, performing. It wasn't really acting when I was in eighth grade, but you know. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to try out just as a fun extracurricular. So I tried out and I got a little part. I played the Eve of the Adam and Eve duo, fully in a flesh colored onesie, like what do you call it? Like long johns, basically, flesh
Sure.
colored,
Yeah.
with a leaf here, a leaf here, and a leaf in the third location. I mean, it was it's a John Guare play with like music. It was just obnoxious. But anyhow, the young woman who was a junior at the time in our department was the stage manager, Melissa, who's now and has been for since that whole time my best friend. And she and I got to know each other. And she's like, hey, do you want to assist me on a show? I was like, well, I have no idea what you're doing or what I would do, but sure, because you're my best friend now and I would do whatever. And so I assisted her, and then all bets were off after that. Like the next year, the department head gave me the stage manager position for the musicals. I did Guys and Dolls, was my first musical ever that I did. And after that, he came to me the following year and it's like, you're getting ready to graduate. There's a program out on the West Coast that's a startup stage management program. The head of the program used to be one of our students. He's a Broadway stage manager who went out there to start the program. Like, you should consider it. And I was like, okay. And again, I was like, I don't know, but sure. So I applied and got in. Came out to the West Coast, went through that graduate program, have an MFA in theater stage management, and then pretty much after that went on the road after leaving La Jolla. I worked at La Jolla for a couple of years. But anyhow, all this to say, everything that happened I consider almost accidental. But every time that accident led me to something that I was like, oh no, this is really, I enjoy this. Like
Mm-hmm.
stage management is like the best job ever in theater. So yeah. So
Ah,
that's where it just kind of all accidentally
it's how it
kept
all
building into
began.
it. So
Would you know off the top of your head how many, at least, Broadway shows and tours you've worked on?
I did 4 Broadway productions and I think 15 national tours.
Wow.
Because a lot of them were, like the Hamiltons and the Book of Mormons and Mamma Mia. They were many years that I did on each
Yes.
of them. So over the 26 years, yeah, I think I did 15 different shows.
Wow. So have you played all 50 states?
I have never played, there's 2 states in the Northeast that I've never played. I've never played New Hampshire and I've never Maine.
Wow. That's kind of
Yep,
shocking.
I know. And I've played every other state, which is
Wow. Even
crazy.
even Alaska.
Yeah.
And what show took you there?
No, I'm sorry. That's a lie. I went to Alaska. Sorry, I just realized that while some of my friends were there with another show. I actually never played Alaska.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. I actually never played the theater in Alaska, but I've been there with another company. And
We'll
yeah.
we'll count it. Well, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll count it. Yeah. That's okay, but we've done almost all of them. That is okay. So you mentioned the big shows, Hamilton, Mamma Mia, Book of Mormon. What is it like working on a show that everyone and their mother wants to see?
It's amazing. It's a lot of pressure, obviously. But, a lot of our touring business, and this is really true post pandemic as much as it was over the years leading up to it, our industry is very fragile. A lot of tours go out and they say, okay, well, we're going to book for this first year and then we'll see how it goes. Or they say they're going to be booked out for 3 years and then numbers just start doing what they should. And so after a year and a half, they're like, oh, we're going to close early. So you spend a lot of your career on the road worrying that you're going to have to now find your next job, except when you're on Hamilton. Because no matter what, even if your tour closes, the other tour are still going, the other two tours, or the New York show, or the international tour, which Travis did, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. There's always going to be opportunities with a show like that because it's just never going to die.
Yes.
So the pressure's off a little bit, but then the pressure's on because you're bringing something to the country or to the world that is special and so anticipated, and you just need to make sure that everything stays tight and good and speaks to the original intentions of the show and all the things. So there's pressure sort of, and then less pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pros and cons. And is
Yeah.
there something that draws you to a show? Do you want to work on something like that? Are you up for a show that not many people have heard of? Is it just timing? What helps you pick what you do next?
Yeah, I mean, it was timing for the better part of my career because a lot of times you start working with a particular general management office, and once your show is sort of winding down, they're like, "Oh, we have these ones out, and then we have two new ones coming up. Like, are you interested in doing any of those?" So that kind of is a natural progression. But towards the end of my career, I think there's a pretty small group of us who do this touring consistently or as consistently as I did. And I think that I got to the point where I could reach out and be like, I'm interested. And they're like, great, it's yours. Because they just knew you were the tried factor, right? Like they knew that you had taken out all these other shows, or you had already worked with somebody in that organization who was with you at one time in a different organization. Like the family of people is pretty
Mm-hmm.
small. So towards the end, like Hamilton, I didn't even know what it was, but I remember our press agent on Book of Mormon said to me, "Oh, Hamilton's going to be your next show." And I was like, "Really? Like, tell me about it." She goes, "Oh, it's like getting all the press and it's like, it's going to be this great show." So without knowing anything more than that, I went to the GM at the time of Hamilton, who had been my former company manager on a couple of shows years earlier. And I was like, "Hey, I think I'm interested in that. Is that a possibility?" He's like, "Yes, absolutely." And then we made it happen.
And
So
here we are. And here we
yeah,
are.
here we are.
And you got to do the Puerto Rico stop.
I
The
did
right.
not.
Oh, you didn't. That's right.
I would have. I mean, that was my
Okay.
tour, but I opted out because this is going to sound so silly, but I couldn't take my dogs. And it was over the holidays. And I was
Okay.
like, I'm not going to leave my dogs. Like, and my husband and I could both go, but I wasn't going to leave the rest of my family, like, not traveling with us. So I asked our production supervisor to do my part in Puerto Rico. And I came ahead to San Francisco and got the show ready here
Gotcha.
because that's where we're going after Puerto Rico. So, yeah.
That's right. Yes, 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 yes. I'm also very lucky. I got to be the dog walker when I was
Yes.
on tour as well. So I've gotten to witness many of people's pets and their pets unique needs. We'll call
Yes.
it. We'll call it.
Yes.
So what is it like? Because we had several people on tour that brought cats and dogs, and the cats always surprised me, but they were there. What is it like traveling with pets across the country like that?
It's gotten easier. I think our country has gotten so dog friendly
Yes.
that it is definitely easier. You can often find places that will allow you to bring dogs. I mean, they'll usually charge you, um, but I also, again, so a show like Hamilton or Book of Mormon, they afford you a longer stop in a city. So you could do an Airbnb for a month, or
Mm-hmm.
like you had options other than just your standard hotel that used to be really the only options for road people. So I think that made it possible. I also lucked out because my husband retired a few years ago. So he was still traveling with me. He was a former stage carpenter, of course, as I said. And he would still travel with me and sort of manage our life outside of the theater, including the dog. So I had that sort of support. I always marvel at people who don't have that kind of support where they're traveling just with them and their dog. And I'm like, I don't know how you do that. Like, but people figure it out. It's
Mm-hmm.
if it's your sanity, and your pets often are your sanity, you figure it out.
It also, I think, was that kind of consistency, because I'm sure, as many people can imagine, if you're moving sometimes every week, sometimes, like you said, once a month, there you don't have there's not a home necessarily,
Yeah,
besides that place that you're living for a month, but having that your friend, your pet to come home to always made it a little easier.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
true. It's that, yeah, because you're right. There's no consistency anywhere else on the road. That's always, people always say, "What's the hardest thing about being on the road?" It's like getting a dentist appointment. Like seriously, like you know what I mean? Like there's
Yes.
just no, yeah, it's tricky.
It is a unique lifestyle, and one that I truly never thought I would be have any kind of insight into. So it's been very special and very cool to be welcomed into that so lovingly and so wholeheartedly. And tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. You're a little more, you're stationary now. You're getting to be at one theater for a long period of time. Tell us a little bit about your new venture.
Yeah. So, post pandemic, the business had gotten far away from what I knew it to be
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of various reasons. But I just thought, you know what? I'm mid 50s now. I think I need to find one place to work. I don't want to leave the industry, but I didn't want to necessarily live on the road anymore. And so my husband and I had both always loved San Francisco. A lot of the crews here in the various theaters always felt like family because we were here often, and it's a great city, it's a great bunch of people. And so I thought, well, it'd be nice if we could sort of go to San Francisco at some point. And then lo and behold, the job of director of production opened up in 22. And I thought, well, I'm going to apply for that job. Like, I'm not necessarily a production manager, but I have a lot of experience with all these road shows, and I do it for the shows themselves, so this can translate. And so I applied, and I interviewed. And again, I thought, oh, that was kind of fun to do that, but I'm sure they're not going to pick me. And then they picked me. It's that imposter syndrome. I'm like, why are they picking me? Like,
Yes. Understand.
um,
Yeah.
but
So
it's
what
been
is
great. So I managed three theaters. Actually, I managed the Orpheum, the Golden Gate, and the Curran Theater here in San Francisco. So I get to see all of the tours because they all come through here. So all my friends are still like, in my world.
mhm.
But I don't have to move into a hotel. I don't have to pack my suitcases. My dog actually has a consistent place to pee. Like,
We're not trying to find a park down the road. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. And what is a so I assume then that means day to day it might look a little different every week, every month, depending on what's coming to the theaters.
yeah, I mean, I basically do all the advancing for any shows coming in. So there's the theatricals, which are the more standard, the Wickeds and Hamiltons, and then there's another grouping of types of shows that we call MCEs that are basically like one-off events. It's like comedy shows and concerts and kids shows and convention type things.
Mm.
So we are booking so many between the two categories right now that I'm constantly advancing. So I get in touch with all the shows before they get here by a few months or whatever. We start talking about what they need from us, how we can get them into our venues and get the shows up and running. I help set the numbers of labor. Um, and then there's a whole sort of corporate part of it, which is we do a lot of meetings. And there's like risk management that I take care of. And I do labor union contract negotiations. And it's kind of, there's a lot involved, which I enjoy, because if it were just one portion of it, I think I'd go crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
it keeps me on my toes, it keeps me busy, but it's good, and
Yeah.
I've been enjoying it. So
Good. And I love that you still get to see all of your people. I think that's really special. I think, because I don't know if everyone, like, if I left, if I don't know, if I, like, when I was in TV, I moved every 2 years. And so if people didn't come to the city that I was in, there was no way I'm going to see them. But San
right,
Francisco being one of the big cities, that's really cool. I love
yeah.
that. Oh, that's so cool. And tell me a little bit about, is there a kind of person you think, or someone that would fit really well into becoming a stage manager? Is there something you look for, or like what, like Travis? What made Travis stand out, or what would you look for in someone that said, "Hey, I'm thinking about becoming a stage manager"?
Yeah. I mean, look, Travis already had some stage management experience. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously that's a big bonus, because they at least know what they're getting into. I think the blessing and the curse of stage management is kind of the same thing. It's that, and this is my, when people say, "What's your one piece of advice for like up and coming stage managers?" I'm like, my advice is that even in a job that is meant to be the answer person and sort of black and white, nothing is black and white ever. It's all a huge gray area. And if you can work within that confine and understand that on a given day or in a given moment, the answer might not be the same thing that it was 30 seconds ago, and be okay with that then you're going to be okay in this industry, in this part of it, because it is tricky. You're navigating different cities, different personalities within each theater, different personalities within the tour you're traveling with, right? Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is a group of people that, I mean, technically they become family, but in every family, there's that sibling you don't get along with, right? And you love them, but you don't necessarily like them. Um, so there's a lot to sort of deal with consistently when you're on the road. You're also left, which is also a good thing, but I think the thing that I loved the most about the artistic side of it was that, like, when you're in New York City and on Broadway, all of the people who put the show together, who create the show, who manage it, they're all there. They're kind of looking over your shoulder a lot. And so are your GMs, your general managers. Like, everybody's there with you. And so it feels more like a job. Like, you walk in the
Mm.
door and you do your business, then you go home. On the road, like, the stage management team is responsible for upholding the artistic integrity of the show. And you are hopefully have a directing and choreographic team and music team that trusts you and has faith in you and gives you the permissions to sort of manage the show as you see fit, which is helpful because, again, doing a show in a very small community area in the middle of the country is a very different thing than doing it in Chicago or
Mm-hmm.
doing it in Dallas. Or so I think that trust is really needed, and I luckily got that throughout most of my career. And so it made me feel like I was really a part of really maintaining that show in a way that I
Mm.
don't know that you get that same sense of, um, well-being about it if you're in New York on Broadway. I'm sure they
Yeah.
do. They have their own things on Broadway that they take home, but for me, the autonomy of it out here was
Mm-hmm.
a really good thing.
And I think something that I think might have just clicked in my head is that because you traveled so often and you visited these theaters multiple times on different shows, you kind of had an idea already of how this show could fit into this theater and what you were going to need. And it, were you kind of always planning the next stop when you were either with the show for several years, or you had started a new show but you were going back to Buffalo, Chicago, San Francisco? Were you kind of already like, oh, I know how this is going to go?
Yes, but it was also amazing how often venues would have their own change ups, whether it was an administration change up, which can really affect how the show is received, how the company is received.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or just like the physical theaters. Like, I can't tell you how many theaters decided that they didn't have a great loading in situation, so they were going to like blow out a back wall and put in a new dock, and so things would change often
Mm-hmm.
for the better, which was great. But that was nice too, because you thought you kind of knew, and then you would start advancing, and realize, oh, actually, there's some new stuff to consider and new stuff to, sort of put into effect, and so it kept it a little fresher. But But yes, for the most part, you knew what the venue was, and you knew most of the personalities and what to expect. And you grew to love them. Like, I can't tell you
Mm-hmm.
how many theaters across the country I consider I have family in. Um, which is crazy, right? Because they're, yeah, but it's true. Like, you really do get a sort of road community family that
Yeah.
they're friends for life. So,
Oh, I love that. And I think that could also make, if Kim and Bubba ever decided like, hey, we're gonna do a road trip, you could do a pretty cool road trip, I think.
yeah, yeah, we probably could. That's a good point.
You could we that could be a fun series. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that
Okay.
later. Um, and so, Kim, one question I'm asking everyone is because this whole podcast based on we're just telling stories. Why do you think storytelling is so important?
Oh, well, I think that I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure many of your guests have said this similar thing, but it's interesting right now in this world of like so much like knowledge accessible at all times, and like there's just constant like feeding of like data, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, you need to hear from a human voice, a personal story, because those are the things that I think are important and that should carry on, not what information you're getting from Chat GPT today, right? Like, you need to hear from Josh what that moment was, because those are the heartfelt things, and that are our history as humans. Like, that's what we need to carry on, not all the other crap that's coming at us all the time. Like, I mean, look, storytelling is from the beginning of time, writing little things on walls in caves, like
Mm-hmm.
storytelling. It's just how we know what we know. And it's, I think, the most truthful what we know.
Mm, absolutely. And you've been very lucky and gotten to help tell all kinds of stories across the country thanks to shows. So I think
That's true.
it's I think you have a really unique perspective on that. And so I'm really thankful that you have taken some time to share that with us today. Um, do you have a favorite moment from being on the road? Is there a different story that you think of that you're like, oh, when I get to go back to this theater, or when I get to see this person, it's just always a fun time.
Oh God, there are so many of
I
them.
that
I mean,
I
and
know
the
it's
truth is, most of them were here in San Francisco. Like, we had just the best times. Like, we had a friend who used to be the flyman here at the Orpheum, who is one of my husband's best friends, and he was an avid fisherman. And I remember every time we came back here, he'd take us out on his little boat out way out somewhere past the bay, and we would just like fish. And I remember one time the fish would not, it's like the fish were jumping onto the boat. Like, we went out for an afternoon and we got, like, I think we came back with like a dozen salmon and then a couple of halibut, like a lot of fish. And it was the Friday before the Sunday closing of our show. So we had all this fish that we couldn't do anything with. So our flyman friend Mike, he took it up to his cabin and like scaled all the fish and got it all prepped and put it in a cooler, and we brought it to the theater, and we were able to like just give everybody at the theater that weekend all this fresh fish that we had just pulled out of the ocean. And I mean, stuff like that, just, you can't beat it. It's just.
you couldn't write it better. Like you can't make it up. And that I think was the other just fun thing about a backstage life. You truly never knew exactly what was going to be there. You never knew exactly what you were going to see day to day. Most of the time it was just like a fun little treat, but there was always a surprise. I
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, Kim, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Are you posting on social media? Are you active at all? Do you want people to go follow you?
It's so funny. I do have like an Insta account, I
Uh huh.
think, or I don't know. I am so not a social network gal. Like, look, I still go on Facebook, which I know is archaic at this point. I only started on Facebook, mind you, because of that damn crossword puzzle thing that they used to have on there.
Yes. Yes.
And the Scrabble game that you used to be able to play with other friends. Like,
Uh
those
huh.
were the two reasons why I was on it. And then it just kind of stuck. So now I check it once a day, but I'm just not really a social person like that. Yeah.
I gotcha. Well, then we'll look out for the memoir one day. The
That's right.
accidental
The
stage
accidental stage
manager.
manager. That's right.
Yes, that's what we will look out for. Well, Kim,
Awesome.
I'm so thankful for you. We love you so much. Thank you
Oh,
so much for sharing your stories today.
of course. And back at you. I'm sorry, I just have to say one more thing. One of my
Please.
fondest memories of being out here is when you and Travis and I went to Yosemite and stayed at the auto camp, and like just that kind of thing. Again, when you're on the road, you can't like beat those kinds of moments that you have together. So anyhow, I'm
Absolutely.
thankful for both of you. Thank you for asking me to do this. It was actually fun.